Now, the level of confidence among business leaders in Africa is stable for the second consecutive quarter after recording a steep decline in the year 2015. Now, that's according to the YPO Global Pulse Economic Index for Africa. Now, the index tracks economic confidence levels among African CEOs across the continent. Joining me in the studio to talk about this is Paul Onwuanibe. He's the Group CEO of Landmark Africa. Paul, it's a pleasure to have you in the studio today. Now, I'm looking at this report, and I'm trying to reconcile the numbers. For instance, take Nigeria. We saw a jump from around 30 points to now 54.1 points. That's a very huge jump. So obviously reflecting better confidence levels among Nigerian CEOs. But many of them have, they've passed through power launch in the last couple of weeks, and the story has been the same. They're all mostly bearish about the economic outlook for the economy now and even for the rest of the year. But that's not what this report reflects. Tell us what we're missing here.
Well, I suppose, first of all, the global index, this was taken in the first 2 weeks in July.
Okay.
So just to put in perspective, a lot of the conversations reflected here are the first 2 quarters of the year. And I think, yes, as you said, Nigeria's had a significant rebound, and I suppose one of the reasons was some more clarity in the exchange rate mechanism, some more clarity in terms of the markets, and the whole raft of investors that have begun to show more interest. Subsequent to that, obviously, there's been some volatility in oil prices, so it depends on when you've had people on the show, you'll have heard different things. But someone once told me that Nigeria is one of those places that everybody's pessimistically optimistic. If that's the word, pessimistically optimistic. And effectively, I think what they mean by that is there's concern, there are good signs of encouragement, but generally we have a wait-and-see culture. But some of from the reports I read and from the stats I read from this YPO Global Impulse survey was most people are concerned about the progress of the country, the region, and the continent. And Africa has been sort of trailing behind in terms of sort of the global confidence index in the place because of that wait-and-see and short-term approach to how confident we are. But when people look at their own businesses, and the stats bear that out, 30% of global CEOs have basically said, look, we know there's a downturn, but we feel that the economic indicators will get worse. But those same 30% of CEOs have said that they believe 64% of their businesses will basically increase in sales.
Despite shrinking consumer spending, at least in some sectors.
Absolutely, in many sectors. And they also think that there'll be a 30% increase in employment.
So, what are they banking on? Okay, for those who see 40% or 60% growth in their organizations going forward, are they basing that on the innovative strategies that they're taking? Is it confidence in the strategies that they're employing to help them weather the storm, and not only weather the storm, but also come out at the end perhaps even more profitable?
Well, I suppose it's trends. So you tend to think of the best from a position of the worst. So as you said, in 2015, this country took a battering, and the region as a whole took a battering. So people are now being a little bit more optimistic and saying, well, 2016, we're trying to weather the storm. 2017, where are we going to be? So they look forward and they say, well, you know what, I think I've buttoned down the hatches. I'm putting a few strategies in place. Things must get better for me personally before the country even gets better.
But is that what you're doing at Landmark as a Group CEO of Landmark?
Well,
how much of this applies to you? I know it's a totality of CEOs, but let's be specific with Landmark Africa. How are you weathering the storms? And as CEO, are you also banking or confident on the innovative strategies that you also employ?
Well, Esther, thanks for putting me on the spot.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, in Landmark, so we're in the real estate business, and the real estate business, I've said before, it's about predicting the future. So we're not as concerned about today as much as we're concerned about tomorrow, if that makes sense. Yes. So effectively, we're building buildings today for 2-3 years' time. Right, so we invest at a time when the markets could be bad or are bad as they are now, with the hope that by the time the investment starts yielding fruit, the markets have recovered. So in Landmark, we have a lot of strategies and a lot of investments that we're making currently and over the next sort of few months with the hope that the economy will rebound.
So a lot of that is still based on hope? Still, I know you look at some specific indicators, what the fiscal authorities are doing, what the monetary authorities are doing also, and then, you do all your calculations, and then you come up with some sort of outcome that helps you plot the graph going forward.
Yeah. Well, hope is a very powerful word, and a lot of us rely on it, especially in this part of the world. So a lot of it is based basically, you look at the country as a whole, and you look at the region and the continent as a whole, and it's only going in one direction in terms of all the indices. But the biggest one is the demographic dividend. It's the fact that people are grown in number, and that middle class is burgeoning. And yes, there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of pain, but there's still more people every day. Yes, and those more people, they have to eat, sleep, wake up, go to school.
Yeah, well, many of those people are out of jobs, but we know that entrepreneurship is changing now. There's a bigger push on the entrepreneurship front. Do you think that could be some sort of saving grace?
I believe so, and I do hope and reflect many times that we are in an environment that entrepreneurship is encouraged, and that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of hope, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, if they can't get employment, they employ themselves. Now,
it's funny because still on this report, it still says that regardless of the numbers, the growth we've seen in the second quarter of this year, Africa still remains the most pessimistic region compared to others.
It is. Africa is a pessimistic region, and I think it's just literally because of this.
Is that indicative of how others are looking from outside onto the inside? Is that a global perception?
Well, I think it's a starting point. So America and Asia did well, and so they've grown. Europe and the UK in particular, following sort of the Brexit thing that happened, have sort of dipped. If you look in Africa, South Africa has rebounded, so has Nigeria. Kenya dipped a little bit, Zimbabwe rebounded. So generally all over the place there's give and take, nip and tuck. But Nigeria started or Africa as a region started from a fairly low position. So it does feel pessimistic because it's more short-term than other parts of the world.
So finally, 10 seconds, as Group CEO of Landmark Africa, what keeps you up at night?
3 things, yes. I need to pay my staff. I need to make sure everybody's happy. 2, the exchange rate mechanism, just clarity in that. And then 3, just seeing the market and the ease of doing business in the environments we're in.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
I've been speaking to Paul Onwuanibe. He's the Group CEO of Landmark Africa. He's also a member of the Young President Organization, YPO.